Hello everyone and welcome to our latest webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Rob Newton. I'm Marketing Manager here at Visual Impact. And today we're going to be discussing the really topical topic of virtual reality 360 audio with two great guys, top guys from Sennheiser. We've got Tony Musgrave and Andy Lillywhite. Hi guys.
Good morning. So let's have a look at what we've got and try and answer some of the burning questions about immersive audio and the role that audio plays in VR, virtual reality and augmented reality. So we're going to try and give you a definition of the landscape of what virtual reality and augmented reality are, and the importance. Hopefully we can try and convince a few people of the importance of audio within virtual reality and augmented reality. The main product from Sennheiser that we want to talk about is the Ambeo virtual reality microphone, or VR microphone, and we might just touch on VR in the world of journalism if we still have time at the end.
Shall I give everyone an introduction into the world of Sennheiser?
Why not?
Just in case people are unaware what we are and what we're about, as it were. Sennheiser is still a family-run business, actually, which is really unusual in this day and age. I was fortunate enough to hear a lecture from Professor Sennheiser many, many years ago, well before I actually joined Sennheiser, and he was quite inspirational with regard to his technical knowledge. Sennheiser invented the shotgun microphone. Not many people know that, and received many awards from Hollywood for that. We have innovated many aspects of transducer design, particularly microphones. We developed the RF condenser capsule, which forms part of the MKH416, which is an industry standard. So it was the first shotgun microphone that you could use in the DAMP. The DAMP didn't affect the condenser microphone, which was revolutionary at its time, and that's why the MKH416 prevails today, somewhat 35 years after it was designed. We went on to develop the symmetrical capsule, which I think I'm right in saying we are the only company that actually uses that form of capsule. Again, another great innovation. We've been producing innovative products for the broadcast industry now for well over 70 years, and will continue to do so. About 20 years ago, we bought a brand called Neumann. Again, if you're unaware of what Neumann are, they are the iconic microphone manufacturer of Neumann. Was used in most records produced in the 70s, 80s and 90s. The U87 microphone is an iconic shape, and you would recognize it immediately. But so that gives you a background as to what we are at Sennheiser and what we're about and how long we've been in the industry. And of course, we're well prepared for the next stage, which is VR, three-dimensional audio. And we've drawn on a lifetime of experience in kind of developing the Ambeo microphone, which we'll talk to you about in a little while.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so as Tony said, you've got the experience and expertise of not one but two of the best probably microphone brands in the world to draw on when it comes to developing new products. So where do we fit in? I suppose one of the things perhaps we just refer to is what is virtual reality? Technologies that allow us to experience the images, the sounds and sensations of another environment other than the one that we're really in. Like a lot of things, it's not as new as maybe we'd like to think. The picture there is a device called Sensorama, which was built and patented back in the 1950s. Oddly didn't catch on.
It's kind of portable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that was the portable version.
Yeah, he struggled to get funding apparently. Yeah. People couldn't see the future in it back in the 50s or 1960s when he built his prototype. It's strange, it had the ability to deliver smells and odours as well as stereo sound and stereoscopic vision. So I'd say a lot that's we think is new has actually just been forgotten. Some of the technology involved in that, the seat could tilt and so on. Certainly I've only seen in theme parks and so on.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
But we're more about bringing these things to a wider audience now, I guess. So that was 1950s style VR. Augmented reality, well, a slightly different situation where you're adding computer generated or computer supplemented images and information to the real world that you're actually in. I think probably the most well known of that would be a head-up display for a fighter pilot or something like that at the moment, but there are many other potential applications. As you gather, we're audio people. We don't ask as much about video. We don't know much about pictures, the picture side of things, but
audio we do.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, and the world of virtual reality has evolved a little, and there we are. There we are, the 1950s version on the left there, and moving on to looking at it on our phone, and now to the world of goggles. But again, maybe they're not so new. There we are, the thing with the stereoscopic slides. I think really it's interesting how our perception of reality gets recalibrated every time a new technology comes along. When people first heard Edison's recording on wax cylinders, people at that time couldn't distinguish it from reality, from the original person speaking. To them, that was real. And now we would find that hard to believe. You hear a wax cylinder, you go, well, how could they not tell? But that was down to the experience. Every time we get something new that improves things, that becomes the wow. And then we're looking for, and then we start to see the flaws in it. And that kind of is where we're at with the sound, perhaps, for VR. Human beings are able to locate sound sources in 3 dimensions in their surroundings. So if we're lucky enough to be blessed with 2 functioning ears, we can locate where a sound is coming from. And that really, it dates back to prehistoric times. And
yeah, we've evolved for that, haven't we?
Yeah.
The people that kind of heard things coming from behind were the people that survived, weren't they? So, and the people that didn't are not here now.
Yeah, yeah. We can perceive distance thanks to having 2 ears, so we have amplitude and time of arrival difference. The 2 ears allows us to detect distance. That also gives us the lateral left-right positioning of sounds, and we can actually, still the one that is mind-boggling, no matter how many times you experience it, to me, is height and elevation. The fact we've got 2 ears, one either side of our head, and somehow we can still tell the height of where the sound is coming from, the angle of elevation, and also the fact we can tell whether it's in front of or behind us most of the time.
Plus the evolutionary process also changed the frequency response of our ears as well. The kind of the accentuated kind of details that we can hear at the 1K.
So we can do this, and this is relevant then to our virtual reality, because at the moment a lot of VR content is probably being recorded in mono. The audio track is mono. So we've got head tracking. When we move our head, the visual image changes, and therefore we see a different angle, but the sound is remaining static. It's either mono, or perhaps it's been recorded in stereo but with a fixed perspective. So again, when we move our head, the visual image is changing, but the sound isn't following. And the technology exists to make the playback such that we can render the audio so that it follows the visual when you move your head, that the audio perspective changes to match the visual perspective. And what we're really here to talk about is how we can capture more easily audio that allows that to work. It's something we all know, that audio is at least half, possibly more than half the storyline. You try watching a lot of action movies with the sound turned off, and
it's pretty boring.
It loses a lot of its impact, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. So we can actually, we've got the means to replay sound. This is the point where we probably have to talk a bit about binaural sound, because one of the things we've realised when we presented this topic elsewhere is that, of course, not everybody is familiar with binaural audio.
Indeed.
But maybe we'll come to that in just a minute. So normal audio capture and workflows, yeah, don't work for doing VR audio content. As I mentioned a minute ago, the ability to perceive distance and left, right, and front, back, and up and down is thanks to having two functioning ears, and a lot of the work is actually done by the brain. So from an early age, our brain learns how sound is delivered by our own ears and our own head, and we're learning that from an early age, and it's unique to each one of us because it's affected by the shape of our head and the shape of our actual the pinna, the fleshy part of the ear, which is different for everybody. So the way that I'm hearing something right now and the way that Rob is hearing it and Tony is hearing it and everybody out there, we're all having a slightly different perception of things. We'll never know how something sounds to somebody else exactly, but that's how it's achieved, is from our two ears. As we said earlier, it's primarily evolved as a way of protecting us from danger, knowing which direction the vicious animal was coming from to kill us or whatever.
That's part of the reason why it's always difficult to get good audio within a video. Whilst there's been a revolution in the video industry with auto iris, autofocus, don't have to do the white balance anymore. We've not had that revolution in the audio industry. It's still very much a manual process to generate a nice audio soundscape that matches the video, and that's what we do.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, of course, typically we start with mono. So we're taking a single audio track, and regardless of how many microphones might be contributing to the mix initially, we're recording a single audio track and reproducing it either via a single loudspeaker, or if we're on headphones, then when it's mono, it will be the same audio going to both earpieces. Having two earpieces does not make it stereo. If we have the same sound going to both ears, that's mono. That will give us proximity in a very limited sense, in the sense that if it's louder, it's probably closer. If it's quieter, it's further away. But obviously that's not terribly, I suppose the amount of
direction
doesn't give you any direction.
Right.
The amount of reverberation, the difference between the direct and reverberant sound will also give you some concept of proximity. If something's very reverberant, we'll tend to assume that it's further away. But it doesn't give us any left-right location. It gives us no elevation and certainly nothing front or back. So mono is very limited in its reality. So next on our list is traditional stereo, where we have two channels, again regardless of how many microphones are contributing to the recording. We're mixing down to two channels, and this is predominantly stereo aimed at reproduction on loudspeakers by utilising the Hasse effect to give us a sense of where a sound is and the virtual centre channel.
But in one plane only.
But in one plane only, yeah. So again,
right.
gives us proximity from the volume and the reverberation, and now we can perceive left, right, and points in between, left and right.
So that wouldn't be suitable in a VR environment, because you could not make that signal pan with your head.
Not in the same way. Yeah. Certainly no elevation and no rear again.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's limited in its utility. Where it can be useful in a VR sense is for something like background music, where you don't need the perspective to change.
Yeah.
So we can use a conventional stereo mix for our background music.
And then you place individual kind of voices or objects in the soundscape manually, which I think some of the film people do and some of the games people do work in that way.
And this brings us to the one I was mentioning earlier, and we didn't skip forward on that, which is binaural listening. So this is stereo mixed specifically for headphones, or recorded specifically for headphones. There are two concepts: either native binaural recording, which is done typically with a dummy head. It can be, there are many techniques for recording binaural audio.
The reason we use the dummy head would be to try to simulate the human skull, because the way you locate the sound within a room, your head often shadows or creates an acoustic shadow, delays the audio somewhat or changes the tonal characteristic of the audio, and that's how we kind of place an object within the room spatially. It was used for classical recording a lot in the 90s as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's one of those things. There's quite a few techniques here that have been around a long time. Dummy heads and binaural recording go back a long way as a concept, but they've mostly up to now been hobbies, experimental, not really had that much of an application. I mean, Sennheiser and Neumann, we'll see in the next slide, have produced dummy head type of products and binaural recording products over many decades, and they've had only limited use. So, but as you say, the difficulty with the dummy head is it's trying to be one size fits all, because as I mentioned, everybody's ears are different, everybody's head's different. So this brings us on to a term called head-related transfer function. That's ideally we'd all have our own HRTF, head-related transfer function, measured, and we'd have a file that would represent us that we could use when it comes to binaural reproduction. But the beauty of binaural as a technique is that it gives us all these things that we normally get in the real world by only having the two ears and only two channels of audio required, so we can reproduce it over headphones. And from that, a proper binaural recording, you can get proximity, left, right, at lateral location, elevation, and front and back. And you can get all that. So when we reproduce a proper binaural recording with good headphones, it's very much like being there, but it's a fixed perspective, because that dummy head, we can't go back in time or remotely control it.
No.
You can't if you could remotely control it for one listener, but if you have a broadcast audience, that's not going to work, because you're going to be all fighting for control. So there you've got a fixed position in time and space.
And so when you, again, coming back to kind of the rendering of VR in a VR kind of goggle, it wouldn't really be suitable for VR in that perspective because of its limitations, basically, and that is a fixed audio perspective within a room. If you, as a user, experiencing VR with VR goggles, when you move your head left and right, that binaural recording was made in one position. It cannot follow you. So that kind of really negate. Whilst it's got some fantastic benefits for recording in general, it's not suitable really for VR application.
Not as it stands on its own, but again, it has its uses, and we're certainly seeing increased interest in dummy heads. And as I mentioned, there have been a few, some from Sennheiser, and there are some other ones down the bottom of that slide there, which are not Sennheiser or Neumann. The one on the top on the right, the KU100, is still a current Neumann product, and definitely seeing a lot more interest in that again, because there are ways you can use binaural recording in your ambisonic VR workflow. But it can be as simple as a binaural recording could be as simple as on that bottom row of pictures there, third from the right, is a thing called a Jecklin disc, which looks an awful lot like a ping pong bat with foam rubber on both sides. And basically you've got two omnidirectional microphones positioned either side of that, and roughly where people's ears would be, and that can actually give a very useful binaural recording for a lot of uses. Anyway, that's very important, because it explains why we can use reproduction over a pair of headphones. This is native binaural, where we're recording with a dummy head in the first place. Thanks to the wonders of DSP and modern audio processing, we can take a multi-channel audio recording and render it into a binaural system, so it can be played back with all the attributes you would have had from a dummy head. Of course, that gets a little more complicated. And this brings us to our ambisonics. FOA there stands for first order ambisonics.
So Ambisonics is not a new format. It was developed in the 70s, mainly for recording classical music at that point. There have been products available for sale using the Ambisonics format for many, many, many years. AMS was probably the first microphone that people remember, which was an ambisonic microphone. Incredibly expensive, fantastic microphone. But the format, to me, is probably the minimum you would need to render a 3D audio soundscape for VR application. So it consists of 4 capsules as opposed to 1 or 2 used in a binaural head. So you have 4 capsules arranged in a tetrahedral kind of format. So that's 1 facing, or 2 facing up, 1 facing down, and collectively they output in what we call A format, which you then have to process at a later date to change it to a different type of format and then put it into a DAW. Have we got a slide of the ambient mic?
We have. That's coming right up any second now. So the important thing about Ambisonics A format, which is how we start, this is how your tetrahedral mic works, is that the orientation of the microphones has got no relationship to the orientation of, say, loudspeakers at all. It is, as Tony said, it's all about how it's the minimum form that you can capture a 3D sound environment with. But it gives you, again, all of the information you need to reconstruct a 3D space in any orientation. So when you move in a head tracking system, all the information will be there to enable you to have any viewpoint in the audio sense. So first order Ambisonics looks like this. We have 4 capsules, as Tony said, 2 of which are facing upwards. In fact, you have, we'll have a look at the bit of the mic in a minute and you'll see. But you have the 4 capsules, 2 of which face sort of up and 2 face down, and it's enough to give you the complete sound. These are cardioid capsules, incidentally, so they're not omnidirectional. They're cardioid capsules, so they have a front and a back to each capsule. So we are capturing a complete sphere. And the format on the right, the 4 colours, that's an international standard colour code. Again, as Tony said, it's the format of first order Ambisonics. The concept has been around since the 1970s. It is one of those things that, again, it's had a number of applications from microphones, mostly for classical recording, but all sorts of other purposes.
Yeah, back in the 70s, people often they would record on an Ambisonics microphone and then had the ability to change the microphone's position within the room post the recording, which was kind of unique at that point. And that's because they had the outputs of those 4 capsules, which they would play back and via very clever kind of phase cancellations and other manipulations within either a hardware box or these days what is a piece of software. You can actually move the microphone relative within that room. And I think that's why it was developed, wasn't it, really? Another kind of experimentational reasons.
I think very much the advent, and most people have seen ambisonic microphones for the last few decades, were just a way of postponing the decision about microphone
positioning.
They could put up an ambisonic microphone and worry about the orientation and the position in post-production for conventional stereo or even conventional multi-mic techniques, to just treat that as one microphone in a multi-mic scenario without having to worry, oh, do I need cardioid, do I need supercardioid at this particular juncture? You could postpone the decision by recording the tracks from a first order ambisonic mic. But what's happened, of course, is with the interest now in 360 video and virtual reality, suddenly Ambisonics has a whole new application. It actually has a proper application that is directly ambisonic. So the format that we see on the right of the slide there, A format with its color code, as I mentioned, is the international standard for the order of the channels and the color coding. And as it says there, the channels do not correspond to loudspeakers or orientation. This is just a way of capturing the information. You record the tracks in that order is literally recording one capsule to an audio track. So 4 audio tracks required, record one capsule to each track, and you can then in post or elsewhere in the chain decode that. So we start off with A format, which is the red, yellow, red, blue and green there. Feed that into a matrix. That gives us Ambisonic's B format, which then has a different representation. As it said there, that you get a W channel, which is the omnidirectional component. So that's mixing all 4 channels together equally to give you an omnidirectional component. And then you get X, Y and Z axes effectively representing a virtual figure 8 microphone orientated left, right, up, down and front, back. So from that information you can then assemble a binaural, or in fact any other reproduction. You could upscale from first order Ambisonics in B format. You can actually upscale that to any kind of playback technique you want, 9.1, 7.1, 22 point whatever. It can be once you've got this information in this format, you can turn it into anything. So that's the wonder of Ambisonics, if you like. So we're going to get B format. Oh, we should have a look at the actual microphone, really. So this is
the Sennheiser Ambio mic. On the first picture at the top of the slide, we can see we've taken the cover off. So and on the right hand side, you can see the tetrahedral format of the mic capsule positioning. That's critical. That is. It's also critical that all of the capsules are perfectly matched. If they're not, then the B format that you render will not be usable. It's kind of critical that those 4 capsules are matched. They are capsules from, I think, our old MKH series product, so they're tried and tested capsules that have been around the industry for some while now. The output of this particular microphone, I think I'm right in saying, is a 12-pin XLR connector, because it has 4 balanced microphone outputs, which you can't see on that slide. This particular microphone does require phantom powering to make it work, because they're condenser capsules. They're good quality condenser capsules in that respect. When we supply the microphone with a breakout cable, which gives you some flying tails to go from a 12-pin XLR to 4 3-pin XLRs. But as you can see, it's fairly compact for what it is. The way you would use that in a VR acquisition process, it would be as close to the 360 camera as you can make it. You would mount it on some sort of mic stand with a suspension mount on windshield if you're outside. I think we're going to probably cover those in detail a bit later.
We'll have a look at that in a second. So as you say, it's 12-pin connector on the bottom of that. Incidentally, very important to mention at this point, and I'll probably mention it again, the top picture there with the grill off, the mic looks quite pretty like that, and we like to show people it like that. Don't attempt to use it like that. The grill needs to be on when it's in use, because it forms part of the EMC protection for the microphone. Quite apart from any
Faraday cage.
It's actually a Faraday cage, keeps the interference out. Quite apart from being the first stage of the windshield, wind protection for the microphones. You've got 4 cardioid electret condensers there. In fact, they're not actually MKH capsules, because that would make it a very expensive microphone. But they're 4 good quality condensers, tried and tested from other Sennheiser microphones. We'll touch on that. I'll have a closer look at the innards. But as I say, the most important thing is do use it with the grill on. If you try and use it with the grill off, it will come to grief, and you won't be very impressed with the results. You might just notice in the picture there, before we move to the next slide, it is clearly marked front and up. So the idea is that you know where the front of the microphone and which way is up, so you can orientate it the same as the camera. That said, as you'll see later, we can use it upside down or even end fire as it appears in that picture, because we have the ability to do that change that in the software. So yes, 4 K14 capsules inside. They are matched capsules, as Tony said. Very important that the levels are matched. So this is Sennheiser's first ambisonic mic, and it's a coincident 3D point source capture system. So the idea, right, in a perfect world, all four of those capsules would occupy the same physical point in space, which of course they can't, but we get them as close as we can. And it's specifically made for capturing VR and competitively priced.
Yeah, it's £1,300 approximately, which is competitively priced. I think the other product I just mentioned start from about 2,500, go up to about 5 for the units that have been there for a while, been available for a while.
And because these are matched capsules, 4 matched capsules to start with, there's no need for calibration files or sending it back every year to be calibrated. It's a working device out of the box, and we supply, I mentioned that we need to go from A format to B format. We supply the A format to B format converter as a plugin that you can download from our website for free. We provide that tool. Also, we provide in the box, as Tony mentioned, it comes with
suspension mount, an extension cable, and a breakout cable as well, and a foam wind gag.
Yeah, that's a genuine Rycote suspension there. Very important because there's no mechanical suspension in the microphone, so it needs protecting from vibration. So we provide a Rycote suspension there. The breakout lead is in the little box in the picture there, with its 12-pin connector at one end and 4 XLRs with the same color code as you saw in the earlier slide. Very important that you know which channel, which output of the mic was recorded to out of your 4 channels. It's very important that you know the orientation of the mic, so notes need to be kept. And it's very important the capsules are matched and will produce the correct levels. It's very important that on your recording device that you set it for the same input levels on all 4 channels. Easier said than done on some recorders. I've used a Tascam DR70 where you have 4 different gain controls and they're not ganged at all, and you then have to use an external noise. You use a little pink noise generator or tone generator that's phantom powered to set the levels to match them and make sure they are all the same.
I've just got a question coming in, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just about, you were saying about the positioning and all the information is quite important. There's just a question come up about, obviously when you have cameras now that have sort of metadata built into the recording, which goes all the way from acquisition to the post side of it. Is that the sort of thing that's sort of bedded in with the audio in a similar way, or is it more manual note-taking?
I think it's very manual note-taking.
Okay.
Certainly not a part of what we provide. So yeah, that's
the metadata capability on the cameras you mentioned, Rob, because I'm not familiar with a lot of the cameras.
Yes.
Does that form? Can you type in notes?
Yes, I mean you can put notes in, and you can, depending on obviously the manufacturer, the brand, etc. You can put various bits in, but
you could use that to keep the notes if you want it with the recording. That perhaps would be a good.
Yes, I guess so. And obviously lenses as well now. You can get data from the lenses too.
And another simple thing is to simply say at the beginning of your recording, so that it's on the recording, which way up your mic is, and just so you've got a verbal note, if you're able to do that. Sometimes because you can't even be in the room, so
sure,
not always easy.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, that's all the accessories that comes with it. And this is a quick screenshot of the converter plugin that we supply, and it's available for Mac or Windows, and it comes in 3 formats of plugin to work with any audio workstation. So we're not constraining people to a particular audio workstation. It's in AAX, AU, and VST, so it will literally work with any audio workstation. And this enables us to convert, as I mentioned, from the A format, which is what the microphone produces. You don't have to use our converter, incidentally. There are other A to B format converters, and they will work. But this one obviously is optimized to our microphone. Yes. As I mentioned, in a perfect world, all 4 capsules would be in the same point in space, and of course they're not. And the geometry is something that is unique to this mic, and therefore this converter is optimized to that. Just a quick tour of the plugin and what it's got there. So the ambisonics correction filter, is literally the bit that allows for that slight difference in position. That's at the top left there. And then on the right, there's a very important thing, top right output format. There is of course more than one standard for Ambisonic B. There is the FUMA, for Malum standard, which has the channel order WXYZ. W, remember, is the omnidirectional component, and then the 3 axes X, Y and Z. And the Ambix format, which has a different channel order, W, Y, Z and X, and the levels of the W channels are slightly different between the two formats. Why this is important is because it needs to be the same format that you're going to use at the other end of the chain to decode to binaural. If you have the channels in the wrong order, then it's not going to give you the correct orientation, and it just will sound like a fairly messy result. So you have to make sure you use the same channel order in your B format conversion that you use at the other end of the chain. And as it says there, YouTube, for example, if you're doing YouTube 360 videos, they use the Ambix format. I don't know that there's any real advantage to either, but you must need to make sure it's the same one all the way through your process. In the middle of the screen there, you can see the big knob that allows you to rotate the orientation. So if you realise that when you put the mic out, actually you've put it the wrong way round and you can't go back into the shop to turn it round, you can rotate it in the software here, and you can also select at the bottom there for whether it was upright, upside down or end on. So we can correct simple things like that in post. So this is a quick view of the workflow. There's a couple of things on there. So we start off with our VR camera rig and our tetrahedral mic, capturing that on a separate audio recorder usually, because we don't generally have a VR mic that can capture the 4 channels. So we're capturing that separately, so we have all the same problems with sync that we have with traditional video. In the next step for the audio chain, however, is to convert it to B format, which we do in Digital Audio Workstation. It says Pro Tools plugin, but as I mentioned, the plugin is actually for any audio workstation. And Sennheiser provide the one for converting for the A to the B format. The one for the converting to binaural we don't provide, but there are many binaural renderers out there from other people. Some of them work faster and need less processing power, some of them work better, and some of them cost more money, and you can probably figure out for yourselves which that is, but you do have to audition them. And of course you have to audition different HRTF head-related transfer functions, because we don't all perceive things the same. Obviously the actual final rendering for VR has to happen in the playback device, which in this slide is represented by the phone on the right. The app, the iOS or Android phone, actually has to render the 4 channels to binaural. So you're actually going to deliver 4 channels of audio as part of your final package, not 2, because the rendering has to happen at the playback device because it has to follow the head tracking. So, and that's the only place where it knows what way you're looking. So that's a very quick view of that workflow. We're going to have, does that cover it, I think? Coming soon to the Sennheiser website, we've got a series of videos which have been recorded in post at the moment, which will take you through the workflow in a lot more detail, from the recording, the principles, the processing and mixing and delivering. So that's coming soon on our website, and I guess we'll let Rob know and make sure that everybody hears about that.
Yeah, you'll be able to get links, etc., from our, from our website as well. Obviously, we're going to be promoting this heavily. And we got Dan from Guildford, and he's just asking whether the push for this sort of virtual reality is more from Hollywood or from gamers. Would you say, you guys, have you got a view on it?
I think a mixture, actually. I'm aware of some major news organisations experimenting with 3D right now.
Really? Okay.
A lot of people I've come across in exhibitions who are live streaming 3D video and audio content of live events as a service, as a revenue kind of
Right,
stream, if you
yeah.
like, which is obviously what this is about really at the end of the day. Yeah, very much so. So a mixture of both really.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I think there are probably applications out there that we've yet to hear about.
I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yes, as we all
I
think.
think just the very final slide there, just to remind people, if you are working outdoors, it might come with a foam windshield, but if you're working outdoors, it will need, like any microphone, it's a sensitive instrument designed to pick up very small movements of air. Therefore, if you're working outdoors, you do need more wind
It's
protection.
essential.
Okay. And is this, sorry guys, is this something that you could, come along to Visual Impact and demonstrate it live in terms of?
Very much so.
Very much so.
Yeah, we could.
Yes.
Yeah, we could come with some goggles. We've got some pre-recorded material which we use in demonstration for exhibitions. And at IBC we had it running live, didn't we?
And at BVE we can do a live demonstration of the microphone.
That'd be interesting. So if anyone is interested to actually see it, come along, then we'll get some dates on the website, as I mentioned before, and I think that'd be well worth coming along to, because as you say, it's a bit like 3D, isn't it? 3D was, I think it's every 20 or 25 years 3D
Comes round again.
comes round again, and on 3D this time. But I get the impression with the virtual reality that this is probably more
It's an interesting format, very much so.
than the other thing. So we've got another a question. Are there any examples that we can see a simulated VR video where we can hear the sound?
We certainly have got some material. I couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head where you can find it. So I guess we'll have to find the links, pass them to you, and we'll get them out to people. But yes,
sure.
absolutely there are examples on YouTube, but I wouldn't be able to off the top of my head tell you where on YouTube, which ones on YouTube they were.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Yes, so we'll certainly do that along with the link for the recording this webinar. We'll put some links, where people can actually hear it as well, because it's one of those things that, as you say, you have to. So hearing it is believing it, is it?
I think so.
Yes, very much so.
To get good, realistic.
It really does require a demonstration, and it all becomes very clear within a microsecond. It's quite impressive.
Yes. Okay, that's brilliant. I think, has anyone else got any questions? Here we go. Some news for Andy Tony from Noisemakers.
Yes, indeed. Well, the Noisemakers is one of the one. Yeah. Noisemakers is certainly one of the Ambio binaural renderers, and that is the one that's actually now our official. I didn't actually mention the Ambio. It appears on that slide there. Ambio is the umbrella title for all things immersive audio from Sennheiser, and the Noisemakers is the official Noisemakers. Binaural renderer is the official Ambio one.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Simon. As I say, we've got a few more minutes left. If anyone wants to fire some questions in on this, as I say, a really hot topic. If you go onto Google, a lot of people are talking about it and looking at it. And as you guys were saying as well, it's an extra revenue stream for some people in terms of making money out of something else. So here we go. Jonathan's come in. Would this work alongside radio mics?
It's a very interesting question, and one that we've certainly thought about a bit. It could, because of the importance of phase as well as amplitude in a proper ambisonic scenario, one would have to be very careful using wireless mics, and it's certainly not something I've yet tried myself, and I don't know if any of my colleagues have, but it could be done with care, I would say.
Would it need to be an analog?
This is the debate. Debatable whether you'd be better off with which technology of wireless mic you'd be better off with, because as I say, phase and amplitude are all really, really important. So I honestly don't know is the best answer I can give to that question. definitely needs some work to look into that. I guess we'd have to set up a duplicate system with a wired Ambeo VR mic and wireless ones, and put them next to each other and compare, or above each other, or whatever, as close as we can get them to each other, and compare results, because I definitely think there's scope for some research and experimentation there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Jonathan. You've managed to stump the panel. You should get a prize, really, but
it's always good to have.
And thanks, Richard, for your kind words as well. That's good, to hear that some sales are coming through, which is nice. Anything else you guys want to add?
I think that pretty much covers it, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, I think so. As I say, it's one of those things we need to possibly think about and digest a little bit, and then return to. As I say, we will be hopefully getting the Sennheiser guys down here in person, so if you want to pop along or see it, we'll try and arrange a demonstration for anyone who is interested. Thanks as always to our two experts from Sennheiser. It was really excellent presentation. I think lots of good food for thought, so thank you, Tony and Andy.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for that.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And thanks to everyone who was listening and joined in. Hope you enjoyed it, and bye for now.